Alright guys, today we're going to be solving the stack portion easy problem, which is called valid parentheses. Let's click this and see what it is about. So we have a valid parentheses problem, and it has a string s containing just the characters. We have the round bracket opening, closing, squiggly brackets, and then the square brackets. Determine if the input string is valid. Now, an input string is valid if open brackets must be closed by the same type of brackets. Open brackets must be closed in the correct order. Every closed bracket has a corresponding open bracket of the same type. An example here is this is a valid string, this is a valid string, but this is not. Like, you don't understand, like this has a closing one, this has a closing one, and this has a closing one. That's why it's true. And if it doesn't have a closing one, you can just say false. Constraints, you have the length of the string between these two, and S consists of parentheses only, right? Nothing else. Now, this is also a pretty simple question. What we have here is a class solution, and we have a public, and then in here we have bool is valid string S. Okay. Now, what do we have to do over here? We have a boolean is valid, and then we have the string. We could actually, first of all, think of what we could do. Because this problem is related to the stack, you could see over here, stack, and this is only problem, valid parentheses. So you could actually use the stack for this. But the thing is that to use the stack, we have to include the header file, which is #include stack, like this. We also need the string header file because we have to use some string manipulation. So I could use string. Now, first of all, let's see what we could do. We have the string, right? But we could actually put all of this stuff inside of us. We have to push them inside of a stack. So you can see over here we have round bracket opening and closing, square bracket opening and closing, and then we have the squiggly brackets and the square brackets. And you can see if I push this one, then I use this one, it's going to be on the top of the stack. So you already know what stack is. First in, last out, right? Philo. Or last in. Basically it's first in, and then we have last out. So you could basically confirm this. Stack is first in, first in, last out. Philo. So you can see over here, stack is a linear data structure that allows a particular order in which the operations are performed. The order may be LIFO, last in, first out, or philo, first in, last out. Basically, I said the same thing, but it basically means the same thing. LIFO implies the element that is inserted last comes out first. So last in, first out comes out first, and philo implies that the element that is inserted first comes out last. Yeah, basically it's the same stuff. So this is basically in the more common way is LIFO, last in, first out. So that's why I have to understand how the stack works. If you go here in the images, you could see that these are some of the operations here. Not this, but this stuff, this one. So we have the top has C, and then B, and then A. So first was A, B, and then C. A was added, then B was added, then C was added. Now on the top, C is you push stuff at, and when you pop the top of it, and then the later top is B. I have more videos on stack. You could check my YouTube channel and go to the C++ series, and you'll see a video related to the stack data structure. Now, what we're going to do here is we have a pretty simple way to do this. We first of all have a stack created. To create a stack, it's pretty simple. What you could do is you have the stack type, and here you put in the first, you basically write the stack, then you tell what type of stack would be. Well, it will contain characters, and then you would have to give the name for the stack, and I'll give it st. Okay. Now I want to have a dictionary or kind of a map that would allow me to know that this, this, let's suppose this opening bracket associates to this closing bracket, or this closing bracket associates to this opening bracket, right? So we want to have a mapping here. So for that, we already had those, maps, which were hash maps. We could basically use the unordered map here in C++. So hash include unordered underscore map, and then over here we could basically have unordered map. So we have unordered underscore map. Okay, but before that, what we have to do, not before but afterwards, we have wrote unordered map. Now we have to tell what two types. So it will contain a char and a char. Okay, and it will be called mappings. Now I want to have the mappings here. So the first mapping would be basically the closing bracket of the round one. So like this. And then associates to the opening bracket. Now you might be asking why I started with the closing one. And I'll explain it just 1 second. So I'm opening it, and I open up another pair, and then I add the closing bracket, which is the square one. And then we have the opening bracket for the square one. And then we basically have the next one, which is the opening bracket for the squiggly brackets, and then we have like this. So we have the closing bracket for the squiggly brackets, and then the opening bracket for the squiggly bracket, and this is our semicolon at the end. So this is basically the unordered map, and we have these mappings, and now we have the next part of this program. We created these mappings, and based on these mappings, we will check our string and see if the closing bracket associates. So I'm going to show you what this means, because right now, let's suppose we have the opening bracket. That's good. Push it in the stack. But when you see a closing bracket, and you see that then the opening bracket is within the stack, then you can basically pop that element. So that's basically our logic. I'll show you what it means actually. So first of all, let's go inside the for loop, and we're going to iterate each character like this, using a range-based for loop. Okay, range-based for loop. So over here, what we're going to do is we got each character. So the first character here would be, if you look over here, scroll down, if you look at this first example, we have this opening bracket. If this opening bracket exists, right, so we could say if the character is an opening bracket like this, which is like this, or the character is an opening bracket like this, or if the character is an opening bracket like this. If any of these are valid, we want to push the thing onto the stack. So we want to push the character onto the stack. Okay? Else if, now this means if it's not an opening bracket. If it's like a closing bracket, like, okay, if it's a closing bracket, you basically know that it would basically pop the element. But right now we have to check one thing, either if the stack is empty or anything like that. If the stack is already empty, you could return false, that nothing is in there. So stack.empty, and then we have, or if the top of the stack not equal to the mappings. Now if you remember, what is the top of the stack right now? This thing, which is the opening, this round bracket, right? if the top of the stack, which is the round bracket, not equal to the mappings of the round bracket. So okay, so basically the top of the stack, which is not equal to the mappings. Mappings basically contain the closing bracket. So suppose if we don't have that match on the top, we could essentially have the um, false here because it doesn't match, and we could immediately just take it out. In other cases, if everything is satisfied, we could easily pop it one by one, the element, and this would pop the elements off from the stack. And once the for loop is done, you would basically have to check if the stack is empty or not. I'm going to explain this one more time, just 1 second, and let me see if this is actually correct. If the stack is empty, it would return to 0. If the stack is empty, it would return true. That means 1. And if the stack is not empty, it would return 0, which is false. So let's see. We have control, and then we have comma. Okay, we got a compile time error. What we have is an ordered map, and then in here we have this stuff. Oh, okay, I see an issue right there. I see already an issue. There's a double thing over here, and what it says, warning, multi-character, character, and then we have constant or something like that. Okay, so let's easily go to line number 10. Okay, or line number 10, and fix that up. So this one, all right, and then control and comma. Okay, we have control and comma. Okay, another compile time error. We have a missing terminating character. And where is that? So if we have this one, oh, okay, I made a lot of mistakes here. So we had that round bracket, and now I guess it looks much better. So let's see, control and comma. Okay, another compile time error. Do we have in line number 15 reference to a non-static member function must be called? Did you mean to call it? Did you mean to call it with no argument? So we have else if on line number 15. If you go to line number 15, it's highlighted too. You could see else if the stack dot empty or stack dot top not equal to mappings sub c. mappings. Okay. So over here we have else if the stack is empty, or if the stack's top, which is the this one, not equal to the mappings, which is the map over here, sub c, which is the closing bracket. If it doesn't match, we could return false. I don't know why there is an issue in this one. Stack.pop if, and then we have else. I don't understand this completely. So it says over here, error reference to non-static member function must be called. Did you mean to call it with no argument? So over here. Okay, so we have if, and then we have else if, or stack.top not equal to mappings sub C not possible target to. Okay, then we have I don't know why, man. Now, one best way when you are really stuck, I would recommend this, is use AI to help you. But not AI to just code the entire solution, but just say to AI that you have a problem and if you could fix it. So that's why I'm going to check this out. Okay. So we go and copy this. Correct. So what is the problem with the following code? Okay. And then we can just paste it right here. So the code you provided is attempting to check if a string of brackets is valid, meaning opening bracket has a corresponding closing bracket in the correct order. The code you provided is attempting to check if a string of brackets is valid, meaning each opening bracket has a corresponding closing bracket in the correct order. However, there are a couple of issues in the code. Syntax error. In the line else if st.empty or st.top not equal to mapping sub c, st.top should be as oh, now I understand. Wow. I'm like stack.top. Did you mean to call it with no arguments? Error reference to non-static member function. Okay, now it's gonna work. So, man, I sometimes I naturally just okay. Now we got 1 minute. So control and comma. So let's see what's the issue here now. Okay, we got wrong. Over here we have the string this, and the output was false. The expected was true. What happened here? And the next one was this one. The expected was true. I mean, the output was false, but the expected was true. Last one just ran by itself. I think normally it's giving false in every case. Yeah. So what's going on here? It's basically returning this one. So what we have here is, yeah, and it could also return if the stack has some elements inside, and then it could also mean if it's not empty, right? And then it could also return false. So over here we have 4 character in S. We have each round bracket opening, opening, opening. And we push it into the stack one at a time. And then we basically have to see, not else if, because this is basically not like a second condition. This is only going to happen when the first condition doesn't work, right? So I am going to have to do one thing about this. I might have to cross this out, and I could put it in a for loop, like if statement. So if, and then paste this, and then round brackets, and then put this one in here. So like cut, and then paste it right here. Okay. So else, if that is there, return. And essentially, this could also mean the popping part. So we have else condition, and within it, we could pop it right here, because we're just pushing it at one time when it's opening, but the other time whenever there's something new, we pop it. So pop, and then this is the for loop, and this is the return. So let's see, control and comma. Okay, so now all these cases have worked. Now, what was the problem here? The problem here was that we had a unordered mappings, and we had the opening, closing, closing, opening, and all this. So we had like the closing, and then with it we had the opening, and then we had the closing, and then we had the opening and the closing with the opening. But we had to traverse through the entire character string, okay? And we had to see if it had any opening. Suppose I had like a string like this one, okay, which is this one and then this one. I hope you could see this one. So first opening. So we put the opening. I'll just recommend we have this copied somewhere over here. So let's just paste it right here. I'll just paste it right here. So suppose we had this string, and the first thing was this opening one. If it's an opening, we push it into the stack. Our stack contains this, okay? So we can have, so what do you mean is that if I have a paintbrush, my stack is here, okay, and the first thing within it is going to be this opening thing, this round bracket, okay. Then we have the other case. Now we don't go into the else, but we go to the next iteration of this loop, and we see this closing bracket, right? Now it's not an opening one, so it's not going to push it. It's going to go with the else condition, and first it's going to check if the stack is empty. Well, first it checks if the stack is empty. It's not empty actually, right? And then the next thing is if the top of the stack, okay, what's the value of the top of the stack? Top of the stack is right now this thing, round bracket, okay? If that top of the stack not equal to mappings sub C. Now what is mapping sub C? Now remember that dictionary you created up here, this is the map. It checks the next character. What was it? The closing bracket. So the closing bracket is like this. Now the closing bracket, it's saying mapping sub C, so the closing bracket is going to be over here, this one. And what is the value to the closing bracket? It's the round opening bracket, right? If the opening bracket and closing bracket not equal, well, they are equal in this case, so it's going to ignore this part. But if they weren't equal for some reason, right, if this was something else, like this has a dictionary value of this, and basically both of them match, and that's why that condition doesn't run, this one, right? But if some other thing happened, like this thing happened or this thing happened, then it was going to return false just in the first case, and the whole thing was just going to finish. But we had a really good scenario, and then what happened is that we have this one, and we could just simply pop it out because both of them match. And then when we pop it out, because it matched, right, it matched, this one matched with the opening with the mapping, right, and we could just pop this out from the stack, and the stack is now empty, okay, and the string, the thing sequence is empty too. And then we check, was the stack empty now? Well, if you look at it, I crossed everything out. Stack is empty, return 1, which is true. If the stack wasn't empty, we could return false. So this was the running of the application. I hope you understood this part. Just control and enter, and just see that everything else now is not going to say what I do randomly. I added this, so you can just ignore that, press control enter, just see it running. And really good progress. I hope you like this solution, and we'll check the next video now out. Stay tuned. So this one now is basically completed. Next part, we're gonna have in the next part we might have not binary search because that's medium, but I wish we could have done it. Binary search is super easy. I have videos on it on my channel as well. It's just like a sorting technique. When you have the things sorted, then you basically start from the middle, then you cut it from left and right, and then basically have log n operation. Linked list will be our next one, and stay tuned for that.